I'm Kendra Cook, your host for the DCTV Daily News program out of Dove Creek, Colorado. The Dolores County Broadcasting Network is the producer of DCTV with support from the Southwest Colorado TV Translator Association. That's the special district association responsible for bringing the area free-to-access TV stations over the air by antenna. This is a community TV station, so if there's a news story or event information that you would like to share, call us at 970-677-4119. And if you're a business or organization, we welcome you to find out about sponsorship opportunities for banners or video segments run on the channel. This is the Wednesday program for September 2nd, 2020, DCTV Daily News. The Journal updated the situation with going back to school in Mancos. 1 week into the school year, the Mancos School District on Monday switched to mandatory online learning until September 8th after a middle school student tested positive for COVID-19. Superintendent Brian Hansen wrote in a letter to parents that students and 7th and 8th grade teachers and staff who had direct contact with the student that tested positive for COVID-19 are required to quarantine for 14 days. In an interview with the Journal, Hansen said Montezuma County Public Health notified the school district of the COVID-19 case at 2:30 p.m. on Monday, and the district decided to go to remote learning for all students for 1 week. The health department requested contact information for every student, teacher, and staff member who came into direct contact with the student on Monday, the first day the student attended school. Families with students who had direct contact will be notified by the health department, Hansen said, but the last-minute change to a week of online learning will give the school district, quote, time to be certain of all direct contact that took place, end quote. Because the K-12 schools are on the same city block, all students are at risk, according to guidelines provided by the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, Hansen said. For example, an elementary school student who rode the bus with the middle school student with COVID-19 is a direct contact and would need to be quarantined, he said. 5 middle school teachers and 75 students are required to quarantine for 14 days, Hansen said. Students will return to in-person learning September 8th, except those who came into direct contact with the student. Quarantined teachers will check in with students from home by video calling into the classroom. Schools will be disinfected during the closure. The middle school and high school, quote, flipped the switch and went directly to online learning, Hansen said, but the transition has been more difficult for elementary school students. Quote, our elementary school was just not ready, Hansen said. Elementary school teachers will reach out to their students and individually to coordinate remote learning for the week. John Marchino, secondary principal for Mancos School District RE6, will reach out to families to find how the school can support students who have limited access to the internet. Hansen said, such as parking a school bus near them to serve as a hotspot for connectivity. We found imperfections in our plan and we'll learn from them and move forward, Hansen said. When we have to go remote again, we can flip that switch and our elementary school students can do that. The school district also is plotting internet capability on a map in Mancos to identify where students will need help. This whole situation is hard, said Katie McClure, a parent in Mancos. Everybody is under a lot of stress trying to make this work for their schools and their families. She chose remote learning for her children from the beginning of the year, so the closure does not affect her and her family. But McClure said the, quote, disruption is real for families and for working parents. Hansen wrote in a letter to the parents that the school district's measures follow guidance from the county health department to protect students, staff, and their families. As of Tuesday, Montezuma County had 124 confirmed cases and 5 deaths related to COVID-19 project. The Montezuma-Cortez School District started the school year on August 24th, a week later than it originally planned. Superintendent Lori Hawkness said staff used the extra week to clean and plan for social distancing. Teachers in Montezuma-Cortez schools are using outdoor spaces and tents for class more often, since recent research has found that Project COVID-19 is less likely to spread outdoors than indoors as the air dissipates respiratory droplets faster. Quote, there's been an issue with students wearing masks, Hawkness said, and the start to the school year has been a, quote, very positive one. I'm sorry, she said there has not been an issue with students wearing masks. And neither the Dolores nor the Montezuma-Cortez School District reported a positive case of COVID-19 as of Tuesday. Here in Dolores County, so far school has been optional in person or at home, and there have been no confirmed tested cases. And now let's take a look at the local weather. Today, Wednesday, sunny with a high near 83 degrees with northeast winds at 5 to 10 miles an hour. For tonight, clear with a low around 54 degrees with northwest winds 5 to 10 miles an hour. Then it starts to warm up on Thursday, sunny with a high near 86 degrees with northeast winds 5 to 10 miles an hour, and Thursday night clear and a low around 53. For Friday, sunny with a high near 88 degrees. Friday night clear and a low around 56. And that heat wave continues with Saturday, sunny and a high near 89. Saturday night clear with a low around 56. For Sunday, sunny and a high in the 90s. Sunday night mostly clear and a low around 57. And for Labor Day on Monday, sunny with a high near 86 degrees and clear overnight around 53. And now, back to the news. Posted in the Washington Standard, written by Corey Diggs, as we saw with Mancus and all communities struggling with the educational future of our collective children, this article's subject stands out as an extreme end of the spectrum, indicative of many trends towards more violence and destruction of the current constitutional system altogether, hopefully not here, but across the U.S. They write, Americans are sometimes accused of ignorance over history and geography beyond their own shores. It was no different last week after the Chicago Teachers Union tweeted support for a protest outside of Jeff Bezos' home, where an effigy of him was placed in a guillotine. However, any history teachers among them might have pointed out that the French Revolution ended up turning on its leaders. The protesters, who were virtue signaling for a $30 minimum wage outside of the house of a man who reputedly earns $4,000 a second, clearly had violence on their minds. The CTU tweet stated, quote, "We are completely frightened by, completely impressed by, and completely in support of wherever this is headed. Hashtag solidarity," end quote. The group describes itself as, quote, caring, united, and democratic, but their explicit support for depictions of violence are anathema to wholesome traditional school values. A perusal of the comments under that tweet would suggest that many members do not share the vitriolic zeal. Last week, Forbes reported that Bezos, his wealth, had surpassed $200 billion following Amazon's bolstered revenues as pandemic-tide shoppers flocked online. Chicago Teachers Union Local 1, a collective bargaining body for Chicago's teachers, have also been associated with the Black Lives Matter protests in the city. A, quote, pinned tweet states, quote, can selling the CPD contract and defunding the police, which either the city or Chicago Board of Ed has the authority to do, would free $33 million to be reinvested in at least 300 counselors, restorative justice coordinators, and social workers for every school in the district, end quote. In July, the CTU and some other teacher groups signed up for the, quote, Safe Schools plan, which set out various demands to be met before teachers would return to classrooms during COVID conditions. This group, which calls itself Journeys for Justice Alliance, has campaigned for a moratorium on school privatization, 25,000 sustainable community schools, an end to zero tolerance policies in public education, and an end to standardized tests in schools. Catholic schools in Chicago announced earlier this month that they would reopen classes with a hybrid model, but the CTU threatened to strike, and Mayor Lori Lightfoot gave in to their demands. Mayor Lightfoot now says public schools will not open for in-person learning until the presidential election at the earliest. The Catholic Archdiocese has cited a recent survey that suggested a majority of Catholic parents want their school to reopen with in-person learning. The Archdiocese says that it has consulted with the Centers for Disease Control to formulate safety measures, such as masks for everyone over the age of 2, temperature checks, and limited interactions, but some teachers have complained about being pressured by the union. The diocese's flexible approach in order to get children back into classrooms has been resisted by the CTU, who have asked for additional, quote, hazard premiums. Across the country, many parents are avoiding a return to public schools and instead enrolling their children in private and parochial schools to get them back into the classroom environment. Unions such as the CTU now face the prospect of private schools reopening while successfully containing COVID-19, while public schools remain hampered by union demands. They have also pushed for an additional hour of every school day for teacher prep time and professional development during time normally devoted to real-time teaching. After hailing the remote schooling condition at the start of the lockdown as a victory, the CTU now wants danger money for teachers who enter an empty classroom, though they have yet to clarify what specific hazards classrooms now present. This union and all the others that align themselves with violence and disorder might take a history lesson from China, where during the Cultural Revolution, look it up, students turned their zeal on the intellectuals and teachers of the day who faced humiliation and beatings. By aligning itself with violent protests, the CTU puts itself on a war footing, but it shouldn't forget that its members are on the front line. As data from the Centers for Disease Control increasingly undermines the original death tolls from Project COVID-19, and its likely impact on health, struggling parents are left to juggle work commitments and homeschooling for their children. For single parents, the choice of food on the table or remote lessons is becoming stark. Where do this hyper-political agenda and grandstanding leave teachers in its ranks who wish to have a plurality of views? Now might be the time to break ranks with unions that seek to capitalize on crisis after crisis to further their sometimes contradictory and now disturbing ambitions, at least in Chicago. If the latest tweet is a gauge, then targeted hate campaigns against individuals are firmly on the chalkboard. Parents and students may think this has crossed the line. Certain types of revolutions have a tendency to turn on their participants. It's what you might call learning the hard way. And local disaster emergency declaration has been extended, as reported in Telluride News, for San Miguel County. They unveiled their new COVID-19 website metrics and displays. This is from TellurideNews.com. Though county officials are encouraged by what appears to be a downward trend in positive coronavirus cases in the last 2 weeks, the Board of County Commissioners, in concert with county public health officials, unanimously voted to extend its local disaster emergency declaration, the LDE, for the 5th time since its initial passage in March. Commissioners Hillary Cooper and Chris Holstrom, Lance Waring was absent from Wednesday's special meeting. They both approved the LDE, which included updates over its previous iteration. The focus was on ensuring that the county's youth could get back to school safely. One of the new portions of the 5th LDE reads in part, quote, "While one of the goals is to get students back in the classroom where they can be the most supported, we need to prioritize the health and safety of students, their families, staff, and of course the county as a whole. With the virus still in our communities, we must continue to follow the guidance of health professionals." End quote. And they continue, "We're making our decision based on wanting to keep kids in school and our businesses open," Cooper said. And though the only 2 new positive cases in the past 2 weeks were those of out-of-county residents, the county's official COVID dashboard count online includes only county residents, officials were quick to caution the coronavirus pandemic is still very much in the community. Because there have been 0 cases lately, people think COVID is gone, said County Manager Mike Bordogna. As wonderful as that would be, this is not the case. With the latest version of the LDE, the county remains aligned with state public health orders that mandate face masks indoors in places open to the public and limitations on the number of people permitted to gather, among other guidelines. One notable area that the county deviates from the state's public health orders is with its 50% cap on short-term lodging, which will remain in place. The lodging cap is reassessed every 3 weeks. Quote, "I don't think it's wise to shift to looser regulations at this point," said the county's public health director, Grace Franklin. The LDE is valid through December 31st, 2020, but can be either extended or rescinded by the commissioners before that date. What county officials are most encouraged by is that a majority of county residents are abiding by the 5 commitments, quote unquote, wearing face coverings, maintaining physical distance, frequent hand washing, staying home when sick, and getting tested for Project COVID-19 if any virus symptoms manifest. Quote, "People have really shifted their behaviors," Franklin said. "Recent case counts have shown that the hard work has paid off. But," she said, "now is not the time to relax on those behaviors. We're in this for the long haul," she said. "We cannot go backwards." Cooper agreed, saying, "This will probably be part of our lives for the next year," she said. The new look of the county's COVID webpage includes new visual displays and incorporates a broader range of metrics into the data, including a new Project COVID-19 meter, in addition to the now familiar Project COVID-19 dashboard. Some of those metrics include testing capacity, number of probable patients transferred to regional hospitals in a 7-day period. That's the probable patients. And absentee rate at area med centers, personal protective equipment supplies, and other data points. The color-coded status bar is currently at blue, which is the lowest level, quote, cautious normal. That's as good as we're going to get until we have a vaccine, Franklin said. At the heart of it are the 5 commitments. And she added, our goal is to stay in the blue zone. The next color codes of yellow, orange, and red refer to community concern, on cliff, and severe, respectively. The new COVID webpage also includes a link to the state's Project COVID-19 information and public health orders. The COVID webpage for them is online at sanmiguelcountyco.gov. And in a more positive direction, there are some economic successes in various niche markets. And one such success in Colorado over the first half of the year is, yes, marijuana, which, when many other small businesses were shut down, medical and recreational outlets were considered essential, and so continued to do businesses without any notable problems. It makes you think about how that happened. Reported in the journal AP, recreational marijuana shops in Colorado have sold about $160 million worth of products in June, marking the most sales in a single month in state history. With a photo AP. The Department of Revenue's Marijuana Enforcement Division reported that recreational marijuana sales represented a 6% increase compared to the previous single-month recreational sales record of $149 million set in May, the Denver Post reported. Last June, recreational marijuana shops sold about $122 million in products and only surpassed $140 million once before this year in August of 2019, officials said. That month, dispensaries combined to sell $173 million worth of products. Compared to recreational marijuana, medical marijuana sales dropped to $40 million in June after setting a new record high of about $43 million in May. Recreational and medical dispensaries combined sold about $200 million worth of products in June, up 3.5% over May's previous record sales total of $192 million. You can see where the taxes are going to increase. In existing adult use states, there are 3 main drivers of continued growth, a BDS Analytics report said. Quote, further proliferation of new cannabis products that appeal to the needs and desires of new consumers, improved product availability, and growing acceptance of cannabis use. You might throw in there that COVID-19 has made people very fearful and panicky, and that could help reduce that fear and anxiety. They continue with the article saying the State Department of Revenue collected $33.62 million in taxes and fees on cannabis sales and businesses in June, according to state data. So we all might take a look at this industry as a way to bring in funding to areas that may be losing their budget revenue due to other industry ups and downs. What do you think, Dove Creek and Dolores County? It's apparently just business. Share your thoughts. I post up these links and stories and other notices on our Facebook page, which is DCTV Daily News. You can also watch the program replay there, along with news, links, and stories of local interest. And you too can share other events or news there and join in on our conversation. Again, it's your local community TV station, so if you have something to share, contact us. The email is dcbnnews@gmail.com, or you can call 970-677-4119. Thank you for tuning in to DCTV Daily News. Programs are broadcast Mondays through Fridays with replays online on our YouTube channel and the DCTV Daily News page on Facebook. And if you like the program, please do like and follow us on Facebook and share it with your friends and family. This has been a production of DCTV for the DCTV Daily News program out of Dove Creek, Colorado, USA. I'm Kendra Cook. Again, thank you for watching.